And welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. A little bit later on the show, we're going to tie things up with 10 things that we can look at to see if we are absorbed with the idolatry of self. Do we put ourselves above others? That's coming up a little bit later. And if you're not really sure what that's about, stick around and I'll show you. But first off, as we kick off the show, the fallout continues from the election, and it's getting crazier and crazier. The depth of the insanity continues. As you may recall, this was the reaction the day after the election that had Donald Trump winning and beating Kamala Harris.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad? What is wrong with you?
I can't do this anymore. I'm literally sick. I'm literally sick to my stomach. What has happened to America? What has happened to democracy? What has happened to freedom?
What the hell? You cannot be serious. How did I wake up to this garbage as my president? That's right, garbage. I went to bed last night and she was ahead. I woke up to this freaking nightmare. Donald Trump? How?
Woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this thing. Let's see what happens. Is this cutting off hair? I'm going to have to cut it shorter than that. Buzz it down, right? I think that this is too... it's getting hair. Let's see here. Maybe I got to cut it. Here we go. Have I given up on America? Yeah. I've also given up on coloring this hair because, right? Coloring my hair. Having my hair be long and luxurious. That being skinny, being hot, and all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be, because clearly they don't give a about us. And I'm talking to you too.
So that was some social media responses the day after the election. You've heard terms in that video such as garbage, end of democracy, loss of rights, shaving the head. And so that's what went on the initial couple days after the election. Now, it hasn't gotten any better as the craziness continues, although not to the level of 2016 when Trump beat Hillary and people dreamed up constitutional crisis type scenarios to try to get her in. But you've got the zaniness of what's going on with these liberal women on social media. Now, with that craziness that's been going on, we've also had Veterans Day. Veterans Day, a day to honor and remember those soldiers, men and women who sacrificed and served in our military, served our country, so that we can have the freedoms that we have today, including ranting on social media, shaving our head, calling the president garbage, and all that stuff. But here's what gets really, really sad and really, really pathetic on the parts of these individuals. So as I was scrolling through TikTok, looking for something other than this crazy election stuff, I came across some correlation between people and veterans, these liberal type women, and how they're now disrespecting veterans. So here's one clip, and I just captured the video of what it says, the script on the screen. And that's a lady standing there in a blue shirt with her coffee mug. Remember, blue is for the Democrats, blue bracelets, blue hair, whatever, Blue Man Group. It's like they're the Blue Man Group. Everyone's shaving their head, going blue, like the Blue Man Group, trying to stay on the marquee of relativity as long as they can. But she writes, when your blue husband, blue heart, so when your Democratic husband takes his MAGA dad out for Veterans Day because it's tradition and he feels bad because he has to, and you stay home with your girls for the first time to prove a point because you can't dine with a veteran who voted for Trump. I mean, imagine that. Here you have a veteran, a father, a grandfather, a father-in-law who fought and served so that we can have the freedoms we have today, so that this person has the freedoms she has to write this crap. And she doesn't have the audacity. She has the audacity to sit there and say she needs to make a point, so she can't go out and have Veterans Day meal with MAGA dad to prove a point. I mean, what kind of world is this thing coming to? Here's some comments to that. I just ended a 23-year friendship myself. I did too, girl. 40 years, he dragged me for filth before I stood my ground. I feel good. I'm actually devastated, but I just can't stand by while all actively vote in a predator. I think people should learn how to write better. I'm actually devastated, I think she says, but I just can't stand by while they all actively vote in to office a predator without zero consequences for their actions. Maybe they're uneducated. I don't know. So these are some of the responses. Right there with you. We have to put our energy into people we can trust. This is exactly where I'm at, letting go of almost all my past relationships because they are all Christian conservatives from my childhood. And it goes on and on with the comments. So here we have Veterans Day. We have all these liberal women posting things about how bad it is to go out to eat with a veteran, again, who fought and served and sacrificed so that they can post this stuff on social media. Here's another one. If you voted for Donald, don't thank a veteran for their service today. You voted to eliminate VA hospitals and clinics, to slash benefits for disabled veterans, and to eliminate veteran jobs in the federal workforce. They didn't fight for that. No, they fought for your freedoms so that you can be free to post this stuff. And by the way, 62% of veterans voted and support Donald Trump. Only 37% for Harris. And imagine all those people in Afghanistan, those 13 service members that died in Afghanistan on with the withdrawal that Kamala Harris was a part of. And she even said that she was the last one in the room and was pretty proud of what they had accomplished. And yet 13 servicemen died when that withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, it's not all crazy because you're starting to get some pushback. You're starting to get some pushback from people that suffer from cancer and have lost their hair due to like chemotherapy. And they're saying things about the movement, that 4B movement where you shave your head, you're going to be abstinent, not have sex, not have kids, maybe divorce your husband, break up with your boyfriend, not date for 4 years, whatever nonsense it is. And some people are pushing back on that because that has been bastardized from the 4B movement from South Korea, where there really is women that are being oppressed because of a patriarchal society. And there's other places around the world that people are being oppressed, having to wear burqas and long clothing over their bodies, can't go out without a male someone to accompany them that's male. Things like that, can't go to school, can't get educated. And yet here, because of a presidential election, these women are freaking out, shaving their head and disrespecting veterans and disconnecting with friends and chopping off relationships from 23 years, 40 years, like these posts are saying. But here's some sanity, if we can call it that, in a world of insane activities on social media. It says, parents, if your kids are terrified after Trump wins, it's your fault, not his. You've stripped away their peace, their innocence, and sense of security, and instead, you filled their heads with worry and anxiety. You've traumatized them to validate your own propaganda and paranoia. And that's exactly what it is, paranoia. There was a student, a teacher, I talked to the teacher the day after the election, and a student, I think second, third, maybe fourth grade, somewhere in their elementary school, lower elementary school. And the teacher said, when the student came in, could kind of notice that the student was down, asked what was wrong. And the student replied that Trump won the election. And so the teacher was like, okay, and why are you down? Throws himself on the desk and says, because he's going to raise taxes. What does a fourth grade or third grader know about taxes? Probably nothing. But here, his entire day was scrapped because of his parents instilling in him this anxiety that Trump won. Here's another one. Oh, would you look at that? The misogynist and women hater talking about Trump when he is now bringing together his cabinet and people that are going to serve with him. Oh, would you look at that? The misogynist and woman hater. Two women in high-powered positions, one as White House Chief of Staff and the other as the ambassador to the United Nations. How dare he? Shave your heads, ladies. Shave your heads. So what this post is referring to is the fact that Mark Cuban came out and said, no, wise woman, smart woman, capable woman, whatever, basically trashing women, and how the women around Trump are basically no good. Probably garbage, like his supporters were called. But you have someone like Kristi Noem, who is the governor of South Dakota, nominated for Homeland Security Director. Elise Stefanik, who is a representative of the state of New York in the House of Representatives. I think she was like fourth in command, so to speak. Ambassador to the UN. Susie Wiles is a chief of staff, the first ever female chief of staff. And then you have Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's director of national intelligence. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of strong women that are being a part of his staff, his cabinet, and upper level positions in the government. And when you think of women, why is it always having to be a Democratic woman with a history that is pretty sketchy? And you could go argue that with your friends. But Hillary Clinton, sketchy. Kamala Harris, sketchy. If you want someone that is going to be a first female president, I know people have thrown out like Candace Owens or Condoleezza Rice, people like that. But what about a Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas? Now, that would be somebody that would be worthy of being the first female president, someone like that, who has the character and quality to represent the Oval Office and not take crap from people around the world and not give in to people around the world and not sell your soul to the devil to get into that Oval Office. And then one final one. Now, the post was muted, so obviously I think they used some music that might have had some copyright infringement, but it said, I've been blaring this song ever since I heard it on here. The feminine rage is real. The government and no man will ever tell me what I have to do with my body. Now, I might nitpick here a little bit if you don't mind, but you can't harm yourself. Like, you can't cut yourself without consequences of the government coming in and probably institutionalizing you. You can't do drugs, maybe outside of Portland, Oregon. I'm talking about cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, that type of thing. Don't know why you'd want to, but again, it's against the law. And I think even Oregon is going back to making it a criminal offense. I'm not sure, but there was conversation on that. So there are things that the government can tell you what you can and can't do. Or let's take it to the extreme. We talked about these women that are pushing back on the shaved head idea of the B4 movement for these liberal women. What if a doctor comes in and says, you know what? Unfortunately, you've got cancer. We recommend you do chemotherapy. Or you're sick. We recommend you do this. If you have a male doctor, are you going to do what he requests you to do for the betterment of you? Probably, right? Or are you going to put your health at risk because a man told you? And you think about it, the other thing that's kind of funny about that is that in 1972, Roe v. Wade, it was an all-male Supreme Court that ruled in favor of Roe v. Wade. And yet it was a court that consisted of multiple females on the court, women, that turned down Roe v. Wade. So at what point does this get crazier and crazier? Here's one last one. So this last one here kind of sums it all up. Liberal women are voting to stay away from men, refusing marriage, sex, and childbearing completely, calling it 4B. Looks like we just solved the abortion crisis and made it exceptionally easy for men to avoid dating crazy psychopaths. Winning. And that's kind of what it comes down to. You're doing the exact thing in this 4B movement. So you're for abortion, you're for the right of you and your daughters, which is the right for your daughters to abort your grandkids. But anyways, so you're all for this, but now you're going to abstain from dating, from sex, from childbearing, all this stuff, but yet you're hoarding abortion type materials. And then again, why are you doing that? For your daughters. Well, if your daughters are 13, 14, 15, maybe instead of worrying about them getting pregnant at a young age, which statutory rape, but we don't care about that because people always say, well, what about abortion in case of rape and incest? Well, what about rape and incest if a pregnancy doesn't occur? Should we not worry about that too? But instead of worrying about the abortion aspect of young women getting pregnant, what about teaching them some self-worth, some self-pride, not just to sleep with anybody? Let them know that they should save themselves for somebody that's really worth it. Would that be marriage? Well, that's your call. But again, guys are going to say anything to get you to have sex with them, and then they would discard you. And if you get pregnant at a young age, chances of being discarded are even more. So again, why not teach young women and men? You should teach young boys, teenage boys, that women aren't a sexual object and that they should be treated with respect and that they're not to be chased after and idolized or fantasized about or whatever it is, that they should be treated with respect. Because again, how many people are together from middle school, from early high school? Sure, there's a few people that are together, high school sweethearts, but chances are that person that you first have sex with isn't going to be the person you're with forever. Why would you want to give that away to somebody? But again, instead of hoarding these abortion things, why not teach them not to have sex? Or if you're a little bit older, why not practice safer sex that isn't going to lead to an unwanted pregnancy? So some responses from that last one I just read. So glad to hear their species will be fading away. Sounds like yet another victory. They shouldn't breed anyhow. 4B as in 4 brain cells. Absolutely, we are grateful. Great means these kinds of cesspit of society won't breed and will be eradicated out of the gene pool. Again, on a side note, if you're going to post something, please make it literate, because it kind of takes away the effect of it. But you get the point. So you have people on both sides. But what it really comes down to is something that Dr. Drew said on the Sean Hannity show when he talked about this whole delusion that is going on in this post-election world that we live in.
And the whole headline here, Sean, is hysteria. Hysteria and delusion. And the source of this has been mainstream media. The American public has been propagandized to the point that they literally become mentally ill. And the thing about delusionality is it can't be reasoned with. We have literally been through a stage of delusion that started with the first Trump presidency. It was put into absolute orbit with COVID. We now have the new HHS document that showed how the propaganda was done, how many hundreds of millions of dollars were spent, and vulnerable people were affected by this. And I would say the way to deal with your family members that are like this, compassionate firmness. Firmness, not rationality, not discourse, because argumentation will not work. They're delusional, but firmness. Because the reality is, this is like a cult. What do cults do? They separate families. They separate the cult member from the family. And this is how they get their way. We must fight against that.
So Dr. Drew, an expert in this field, talks about it as a delusion. Delusion from the propaganda spread by the mainstream media. It's like insanity. There's no reason. There's no rhyme. You can't reason with them. He says, don't argue with them because that's not going to get anything. And there's a lot of vulnerable people that have been affected by this. Argumentation won't work, he says. And it's like a cult. That's exactly what happens in a cult. You remove the cult member or the person that you're trying to bring into your cult. You separate them from family and friends. And that's what's happening on TikTok. It might not be a literal in-person type cult, but it's becoming a cult on social media where you're alienating people from family. You're alienating people from friends. You have people that are saying they're blocking friends that voted for Trump or a MAGA or Republican. They're disconnecting with people that are, so they're blocking, they're disconnecting from people that might have comments on them. They're unfriending people, all kinds of stuff. And again, the comments from earlier said the same thing. I dropped somebody from 23 years of friendship, 40 years of whatever the relationship was. People are just dropping people over an election. And to take it a step further, now that the holidays are coming, there was a Yale professor of some sort on the Joy Reid show talking about that if it's the holiday time and you don't want to get together with your family because they're MAGA or there's somebody in your family that voted for Trump or whatever, just don't. It's okay not to be with them and to disassociate with them.
When you know someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why.
I find it interesting that this person, psychologist, whatever, professor, says people feel entitled to your time. Like there's something, like they're all that in a bag of chips, right? All that in a bag of Takis. But it's the narcissism in these people to think that we are going to be so offended and hurt and come crawling on our hands and knees. Say, please, please come hang out with us. We apologize for what we did or vote, blah, blah, blah. What narcissism? Again, that delusion, like they're above everything. If there's somebody that doesn't want to hang out with me, and maybe I'm an exception, I don't know. There's somebody that doesn't want to hang out with me, don't. It's not going to bother me. I don't care. Because if that is your level of relationship with me, where you just want to walk away, probably doesn't mean anything anyways. Because I know that the people, even the people that I disagree with, we're still together. We're still communicating. We're still talking. It's not at that level. If it's at a level where you're going to walk away, then probably never was good or strong relationship to begin with. Or two, going back to what Dr. Drew said, these people are pretty delusional. Look at it was Joy Reid asked my psychological perspective. So it's all mental illness. It's the hypersensitive people that were vulnerable, according to Dr. Drew, that have succumbed to the propaganda from the first Trump administration to the COVID to now. The mainstream media over and over and over are telling you that your democracy is going to be taken away, that your rights are going to be taken away, that kids are going to die, that education's going away, and people buy into it. It's not going to happen. We could do a whole thing, and I think I did last time, but about the Department of Education. I don't want to go into it now because we've talked about it, but the Department of Education going away, not really going to affect much. But there's people out there posting all kinds of craziness about how it's going to be bad for kids. There's going to be no access for kids. When did the Department of Education ever, A, create law, and B, enforce law? It doesn't. What it does is it provides money, and with that money, strings attached. If you want my money, you want the Department of Education money, do what we say, implement these policies. And it goes on and on and on. So you have a delusional group of people out there in the minority now, because again, 8+ million more people voted for Trump. So majority of the people in this country voted for Trump. And maybe some people that weren't able to vote for whatever reason. Young people, are they millennials now? Where are we at these days? Gen Z, millennials, maybe you're under 18, you couldn't vote. Okay. Or maybe you're an immigrant and you couldn't vote, but yet maybe still supporting the ideas, the policies from Trump. And later on in that interview with Dr. Drew said that the next day after Trump won, and by the manner he did win and the margin, he felt that dialogue was starting to be able to be free again. People could talk about different things that before they didn't want to talk about because of fear of this delusional crowd coming after you. And so now this crowd that's coming after you is actually in the minority. And the minority, they're the ones that are trying to get you to not be with you. They're the ones that don't want to be with you. Well, if you're the only one, or that family, that lady that said her and her husband and her kids, like they were supposed to go to have Veterans Day meal with the MAGA dad. Well, one day that MAGA dad isn't going to be here. And you know what? The fact that you got over the election, that's going to come back and bite you. And if it doesn't, then that tells you even more what type of person you are, the evil that's in your heart. Now, to take it a step further, you got to look at some of the comments that were made about why people voted for Trump over Kamala Harris. Well, what's a fair way to do that? Let's turn to AOC. So AOC, the New York Congresswoman, put out there on social media talking to people that voted for Trump, but then also down ticket, down ballot, voted for Democrats, such as herself. So people who support both Trump and me, or she puts it, voted Trump/Dem, tell us why. Well, here's some of the responses. I know people that did this, and it was because of Gaza. Apparently, Kamala didn't support Gaza enough. I support you and did this. Felt like I didn't have a choice after the Biden's administration. Voted for Trump and you, not genocide Harris. Dems need Bernie. So apparently a Bernie Sanders fan. Let's see. He speaks of war as something that is bad. So I guess Trump, trying to keep the peace. Democrats became the party that supports war. So here it came down to war. Let's see. But also you signified change. Trump signified change. I've said lately, Trump sounds more like you. Comparison between Trump and AOC. And again, this is AOC on social media, putting it out there, asking people, why did you vote for Trump? And then why did you also vote for me or vote Democrat down ballot? The responses you've got make me want to barf. So apparently somebody disagrees with this whole thing, this whole premise. Let's see. She was more for rights than the economy. And then when she talked about it, the economy, she didn't have a plan. Dems do better at the local level, but they're terrible at the macro or national level, I guess. You are focused on real issues people care about, similar to Trump populism in some ways. And so it goes on. It's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class. Trump is going to get us money and let men have a voice. You're brilliant and have amazing passion. I feel like Trump and you are both real. Both want to change, so I went with Trump and blue for the rest of the ballot to put some brakes. Again, that kind of split ticket thing. Voted Trump, but I like you and Bernie. I don't trust either party establishment politicians. Voted for Trump in Arizona, but voted for Dem Rubin instead of Kerry Lake because taught he's good handling war. I think it means thought he's good at handling war. Again, when you write stuff, make it literate. Action plus progress, stagnation and excuses. So Trump is action and progress. And then I guess Kamala was stagnation and excuses. But both of you push boundaries and force growth. I feel that both are outsiders compared to the rest of DC and less establishment. So AOC is outside DC. I voted for you and Trump, but I am in California. I like your style, though. Oh, I would have voted for you and Trump. So apparently this Californian voted for Trump and who knows what else. Will you please share what you learned? I'm baffled about the split vote. Well, now you just learned about the split vote. So apparently this disconnect with people sitting there and saying, if you voted for MAGA, if you voted for Trump, you're bad. Well, the next question would be, what if your friend voted for Trump, but then voted for AOC or voted for a Democrat down ballot? State senator, maybe a U.S. senator, U.S. congressman, state. You had governors, you had state legislatures, you had all different kinds of things. What about that? How do you treat them? No answer for that. See, it's like these women on TikTok and men too, but it's the women that do most of the posting that I've seen anyways. It's like they're jellyfish. They just sit there on the ocean of TikTok or social media and they just ebb and flow with the tides of whatever social media has to say. I mean, think about this, if you will, okay? Remember back in early 2024, this I think kind of sums up the liberal mindset of women, okay? Remember back in early 2024, whenever the Met Gala was going on and you still had kind of Israel and Palestine and Gaza in the forefront of everybody's mind, right? And so everybody goes to this gala, the Met Gala. It's a ritzy thing, high prices for tickets, exotic gowns people are wearing. And somehow, some way, somebody gets ticked off and is upset that not these celebrities aren't promoting Gaza or supporting Gaza enough, like this one person said in the comments to AOC. So they start to block celebrities, hoping that it will affect their, I guess, income stream, whatever, hurt them. So people started to block celebrities, Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, Jennifer Lopez, Cardi B, the Kardashians. I mean, you name it. They were blocking them. And they were posting about who they blocked for that day and then suggesting to other people who they might block. And so everyone was posting these videos of these celebrities that they were blocking in Blockout 2024. Now, fast forward maybe 6 months, and these same women that were blocking out and protesting these celebrities, these women that weren't supporting Gaza, they're now turning to them and asking them and pleading them, such as Taylor Swift, to endorse Kamala Harris so that she can win the election. And you see Jennifer Lopez, Julia Roberts, Eva Longoria, and all these other people trying to support Kamala Harris and promote her, and did no good. But that was the mindset of these people. 6 months ago, whatever it was, we're blocking them. We're blocking Taylor Swift. 6 months later, we're begging her to endorse Kamala Harris because the Swifties were going to take over. Little did they know, there are some Swifties out there, and quite a few, that aren't blue. They're more red. Let's take it a little bit further. Some exit polls released by Democratic Polling. I guess there's a firm blueprint. The 3 reasons for not supporting Vice President Kamala Harris. These are the people. These aren't pundits. These aren't anybody getting paid to have an opinion. These aren't anybody paid for anything. These are people. AOC's response were from people on social media. These are exit polls, people that leave the polling places and are asked some questions. So here is the reasons why. The leading issue for voters was inflation was too high. And this was followed by the Biden-Harris administration allowing in too many illegal immigrants, and that Harris focused too much on cultural topics like transgender issues rather than the middle class. So inflation too high, hit the wallet. Too many people, illegal immigrants in the country. And then they focus on transgender issues and things like that instead of real issues that affect the middle class. So that was exit poll information. So then they went on and did some more polling. And so they found out that in addition to inflation, illegal immigration, and the focus on things like transgendered issues, the next 3 factors named by all voters were the debt rose too high under Biden and the Harris administration, that Harris is too similar to President Joe Biden. Remember that time when she said, when she was asked, would you change anything? And she's like, I don't think so. Nothing comes to mind. That probably doomed her. And that Harris would let in even more illegal immigrants. One choice that scored high among swing voters in particular was that Democrats did a bad job running the country. So Harris couldn't outrun her past. So if you're on social media and you're blaming the MAGA voter, and you can't go to lunch or dinner with MAGA dad, a veteran, because he's a Trump supporter, you need to prove a point. What point are you proving? Nobody believed that Harris was going to win because she was bad for the country. Polling out there is over and over and overly pushed towards reasons why: inflation, immigration, bad job running the economy and the country, transgender issues. People were sick of it. They were done. So now what happens? Well, in the aftermath, I think this may have died down a little bit, but it is something that's interesting. So in the aftermath of this all, you've got, I think, a recount going on in Pennsylvania. But Kamala Harris hires a guy, Mark Elias, to help in this recount, fundraising. And so people are all excited. You've got conspiracy theories out there saying that, Kamala in her concession speech, she is giving us secret coded messages, fight, fight, fight. Again, something stole from Trump. And then the AOC in this exercise that she did for the feedback that I just read to you, people thought there was like some, secret coded messages in there, that there's something going on that nobody knows about that's going to overturn this whole election and allow Kamala Harris to be president. But then it comes out that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration, the Democrats, raised $1 billion. And then they went 20 million in debt when it's all said and done. So the Harris campaign comes out with this fundraising deal in a guise to help the recount of Pennsylvania. Some people took it as the recount to the entire election. Then it turns out to be Pennsylvania. But then if you read the fine print of the fundraising pitch, it suggests that Harris and the DNC, not Casey and other Senate candidates, stand to gain a lion's share of the money raised from the donation drive. According to the fundraising email, it says like the first 41,300 of an individual's donation goes to the Democratic National Committee. The next 3,300 is allocated to Kamala Harris recount account, and the remaining funds are split among all 50 state parties or something like that. So in the fine print, it sounds like, and people have read this to believe, that this recount fundraising thing is basically just a ploy to try to raise money to ease that $20 million debt that she has, because a lot of people, vendors and so forth, are thinking they're not going to get paid. And again, so if she wasn't able to run her campaign without going $20 million in debt after having $1 billion, it makes sense that the comments of voters in the exit polls and in the response to AOC's question of why did you vote Trump and then vote Democrat down ballot, it's because the economy, inflation, bad with the economy, don't have a plan for a financial future for this country, inflation, things like that. But you have $20 million in debt after spending $1 billion. So what did you spend $1 billion on? Probably some legitimate things, but what about 10 million for Beyonce to come and endorse you without a performance? What about 5 million to Megan Thee Stallion to twerk at an event? 2.3 million to Lizzo, 1.8 million to Eminem, $1 million to Oprah. Oprah keeps denying that her or Harpo Productions or whatever received any amount of money, but you have to register all this and report all this. Otherwise, it's a crime, a federal election law crime. You have to report all this. So it's the paperwork is there saying that Harpo Productions, Oprah, whatever, received money, $1 million. Well, what about that whole Call Her Daddy podcast? Remember when Kamala Harris went on that and it was like everyone was buzzing about how great that was? Well, she actually paid 6 figures to appear on that. So she paid to play. And then it goes back to, let's look at some of the things that the Harris administration did. $7.5 billion on EV charging stations. And what, they only got like 7 of them out? I think 7 installed. $42.5 billion on rural broadband internet. 0 homes connected. So again, the people that voted Trump and even down ballot Democrat realized that on the national level, this was going to be bad. And thus they voted. And thus the election went that way. And so if you're out there protesting, and the other thing too, which I find fascinating, is these women are protesting 4B, right? Not going to date men, going to break up with men, going to divorce husbands, whatever, shave head, not procreate, not engage in adult entertainment with men, whatever. And then they're blaming men because men didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And so now men are misogynist, racist, because apparently she's black or Indian or whatever she is. And it goes on and on and on. But again, let's go back to that mindset, okay? In the TikTok world, there was another trend. I don't know if you remember this. It was bear or man. I never understood it, so I actually had to go back and look it up and fully understand, because I didn't pay attention to it the first time. But now that I did a little bit of research to understand it, makes all more sense as to why they think the way they think. And again, Dr. Drew said it was delusional. It's a mental illness. They've been fed the propaganda. They've drunk the Kool-Aid. But this bear man challenge was, if you were alone in the woods, would you feel safer with a bear? Or would you feel safer if you were with a man? And all these women were saying they'd feel safer with a bear. That in the woods alone, they'd be safer with a bear than with a man. Basically rejecting men. So again, why would you, much like the block out, we're blocking from social media, these celebrities like Taylor Swift and others, because they're not doing what we want them to do, like speak out in favor of the Palestinian people in Gaza or whatever, to please, Taylor Swift, endorse Kamala so the Swifties and everybody will vote for her so she'll win. We're rejecting men, and we're going to choose that we're safer in a forest with a bear than a man. Men, vote for Kamala Harris. The ideology is hypocritical, and it is that you're the jellyfish on the ocean of TikTok, just going with the ebb and flow of the tide, wherever it takes you. Wherever the wind blows, that's where we're going to go. Because it's complete opposites. It's a 180 mentality. And so it becomes delusional. It becomes a mental health issue. And like Dr. Drew said, you can't argue with it. You can't rationalize with it. But firmness, compassionate firmness, stand your ground. Another thing that has come out, which is really, really sad, and again, it's kind of in the aftermath of this whole election thing, is you had the hurricanes that went through, those two hurricanes that went through, right? And out of that, first there was the giddiness of the Democrats because North Carolina, maybe they weren't going to vote. Maybe places in Georgia and Florida weren't going to vote that were highly Republican. But then a FEMA worker has come out and said, or there was a report that came out and said that a FEMA worker told others to, or actually maybe ordered them, might be a better word, ordered volunteers to not approach homes displaying Trump signs in both Florida and North Carolina. And so it's said that this was a direct edict from FEMA, even though FEMA denies it. And so Kamala comes out and says, you're going to get $750. You can go argue that with your friends over Thanksgiving dinner if she said that or not. But that's on tape. Maybe it's initial, maybe not. There's some people that didn't even get it. But $750 was the first thing that came out of her mouth. And now you have people saying that FEMA said that we're not going to help Trump people that had Trump signs in their homes. And apparently there was at least 20 homes in that one area of North Carolina that were immediately affected. And so again, you have FEMA discriminating against Trump voters. And Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, is going to investigate, or has an investigation going on about what went on in the state. But how sad is it? So again, we have a person, a daughter-in-law, who's going to keep her kids home to prove a point and not go have a meal with her veteran father-in-law who fought and served and sacrificed so that she can have the rights that she has today, the freedom she has today. But yet she's going to prove a point. And now you have people, because of a political ideology, not helping when you're supposed to. That's the whole point of FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to help people. And yet an edict comes down, whether from this one person, Marnie Washington, or higher up, that's the investigations, to say that, no, we're going to skip homes that have Trump signs. We're not going to help them. I mean, how terrible is that? I mean, that is the ultimate. And yet you're giving $10 million to Beyonce, $1 million to Oprah Winfrey, 2.3 to Izzo, 1.8 or Lizzo, whatever her name is, 1.8 to Eminem, you know, and you're busing in people from all around the country and giving them incentives to come to these rallies. The whole thing was a big sham and scam, and the American people saw it, and they fought through it. And they're like, no, we are not going to go down that path. So when we take a look at all of this, it's obviously one big narcissism that is going on. Narcissism from delusional people. And sure, there's narcissism from people that are just out there. You know, we all have it. We all like to think of ourselves first as something maybe better than what we are. Maybe humility and being humble is something that we should think about. But do we suffer from the idolatry of self? Well, let's take a look at that. You can ask yourself this question. Is your heart, because again, we've talked about this on the show many times, it starts with the heart. Whatever is on the heart is going to go to the mind, because we think about it. And so we're going to think about these things. So we're thinking about whatever's on our heart. Am I going to help people? I mean, think about someone. Remember when Kamala Harris, someone at a rally said, Jesus Christ is king or something like that. And she said, you're at the wrong rally. That was on her heart. When someone says, let's skip houses with Trump signs, that evil is on the heart. You just don't come up with that. That's on the heart. That's what you're dwelling about. You're already dwelling about the evil hatred that you have towards Trump supporters. So what's on the heart, the mind dwells on, and then the mind starts to think of ways to act. So are you more passionate? Is your heart more passionate about you and yourself and self-interest than it is towards others? Do you care about your own feelings more than others? Do facts hurt your feelings? The fact that people responded to AOC and said, I voted for Trump, even though I voted blue the rest of the way because he was a better candidate. Does that upset you? Are you now mad at these Democrat voters? Or the fact that you can't go have a meal with a veteran father-in-law because you have to prove a point. Yet you totally dismiss the fact that he fought and sacrificed and served so that you can have the freedoms to do that. What about your time and money? Do you invest that in promoting yourself and not others? I mean, think about all those people on social media that are just going crazy, posting. Well, what if you went out, let's say you were posting don't defund or get rid of the Department of Education. Well, we all know education sucks in this country. It's been on the decline for a long, long time. Have you done anything? Volunteer to help people learn to read? Volunteer to help people to do math? Volunteer to help people with whatever? Volunteer to help the moms that might be struggling because their child has an IEP or something? I mean, have you done anything like that to help the community, to help your neighbors, to help people you know? Or are you too busy trying to drum up and commiserate with videos on social media? Are you too busy to seek self-interests over helping others? Not only just your time and money, but what are you seeking out? So again, you're plotting this next post that's going to be the zinger that all the delusional people out there along with you are going to be like, yes. Instead of thinking about, how can I help my community? How can I help my neighbors? How can I help my local community schools? How can I get involved in a positive way? Are you consumed with your own political discourse while neglecting and even hating others with different views? I mean, again, social media, it's all over the place. Couldn't celebrate Veterans Day with a father-in-law. Don't thank Donald or don't thank a veteran if you voted for Donald because they didn't vote for XYZ. You allow non-essential ideology to drive division between you and others. I mean, how often, seriously, do you see people hate each other because of different sports teams? Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, Giants. Now, you might have some, like over in Europe, soccer fanatics. I mean, they go to war with each other, fights, riots break out because of opposing views, fandom, fanaticism. But in the U.S., if the Dodgers beat the Yankees, well, the Yankee fans didn't burn down and riot L.A. The Dodger fans did. They did it to themselves. So we don't have this hatred towards each other because of sports teams. We don't have this hatred towards each other when we have music differences. We don't have hatred towards each other in other aspects of life, but in things like politics. Remember COVID? COVID was huge. Religion, things like that. It's non-essential. Non-essential by means that, yeah, it's important, but is it really the basis for your friendship? Is religion the basis for your friendship? Probably not. I mean, it might be for some, but you can ask yourself that. How about all the stuff that went through in COVID, and now we find out that a lot of that stuff was crap anyways? The stuff was just made up. Social distancing of 6 feet was just completely made up. Masking was completely made up. Lockdowns, completely made up. Nobody had any type of evidence. And Dr. Drew even alluded to that, to the HHS propaganda paper that came out. It's pretty clinical, so we're not even going to go in there, but you can go look it up. $250 million was spent on how to use propaganda to get people to buy into the COVID stuff. And that's all it was propaganda so that people like Pfizer and Fauci and others can make money off of it. How about, again, do you suffer from the idolatry of self? Do you justify your own immoral choices? Abortion, transgender ideology, the kind that mutilates young bodies, character assassination of others, speaking rumors and gossiping. You justify all that as you commit your immoral acts. Do you center your life on your own interests and hobbies? Again, it's all about self. Do you value your own autonomy and do not allow accountability in other relationships? Do you allow someone to come in and be like, hey, you know what you're doing? Yeah, it's just not cool, man. Or is it like, no, I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to do what I want to do because I feel entitled. I feel empowered. Like these people that say, I'm going to cut you out of my life because, when I cut you out of my life, you're going to feel bad. Well, I don't know how you would, but I really won't. I've had people do that. Going back to even the COVID days or whatever. Going back to the first Trump days. People just automatically assumed I voted for him or supported him. The first time I voted for Trump, when it became him and Hillary, and I sure as hell wasn't going to vote for Hillary, and I wanted her to lose more than I wanted anybody else to win. So every vote that I voted for in that election was against her, Bernie Sanders, and then he got screwed. Then it was Trump. He won. But yet, because people looked at me and said I was white, I must be a Trump supporter. Back in 2016, a lot of people didn't want to be friends with me anymore. Okay, bye. Not going to bother me. You are a lover of things that benefits you over the benefit of others, putting yourself first. We've all had friends that are kind of like that, don't we? At one time or another. Self-sacrifice is a lost art in this society. Even when it comes to the little things like, hey, what do you want to go to eat? Hey, what movie do you want to see? Hey, what do you want to do tonight, right? It's always like me. Unless, I guess, supposedly, according to videos and stuff that we see, it's apparently, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? If you're in a relationship, apparently then you don't know what you want to do. And then again, you suffer from the idolatry of self if you put yourself before others overall. So these are things that you can ask yourself. What's your passion? Is it towards yourself only, not others? Do you invest only in things that benefit you? Do you only seek things to fulfill your self-interest? It's not bad to have self-interest, but does it consume you? Is what it is. I'm talking about worshiping yourself. The idolatry of self, worshiping yourself as you're the one that walks on water. You're the supreme deity in your world. And there's a lot of people that act that way. And that's too bad. Because what we're missing out on, because first of all, life goes by fast. And we all learned from COVID that there is no guarantee about tomorrow. And so while you're wasting your time posting stuff, trying to, I don't know what you're trying to do, maybe join the cult of TikTok, of insane people, delusional people. Maybe you should go seek help. But while you're doing that, you could be spending your time. I posted something in response to a video, and then I got like a bunch of comments back. I don't even read them, but a couple of them in the early beginnings of it, I got notifications, right? You get the notifications. Oh, someone commented on a comment or whatever. So you kind of look at it, and then you realize it's just a waste of time because nobody has anything to say. But it's kind of funny when people try to crack back on you and they try to make you feel little, and they try to imagine what it means to me to have an absolute complete stranger on social media say something bad about me. Zero. Don't care. And even people that I know, like there's certain people I will value their opinions and I appreciate their opinions and I might seek out their advice and opinions. But a vast majority of people, especially people I don't know, especially if you're on social media, there's a good chance what you comment in response in a negative way to try to get back at me isn't going to affect me. And if you feel the need to leave the relationship, leave the friendship, not want to associate with me because of X, Y, Z, go ahead. Now, others, you may struggle with that. But again, sometimes it's important. Sometimes it's important for you to let the craziness go because it's impacting you negatively. Sometimes you just have to let it go. Like Dr. Drew said in the beginning, tough love. Firmness polite firmness, tender firmness, gentle firmness, whatever he said, loving firmness. But you got to push back because you can't allow them to take over your entire life. So if the holidays are coming up and there's some people that are going to make waves, if there's people that don't want to come, let them go. They'll regret it more than you will. You guys get together as family because chances are they are in the minority and you're in the majority, because there's probably a lot of people in your family that maybe voted differently or have different opinions, but they'll set those aside to get together with family because family is more important than the ideology. That's the difference. The difference is people in your family that have difference in opinions, different views, different ideology, they will set those aside for family. That's maybe one way you can determine if you have an idolatry of self. You're willing to put aside your differences to come together. Whereas these other people, no, because you cast a vote, you are the devil. I can't associate with you. It's up to you. This is Two Steps Ahead podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. Check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P. There's a lot of things there that you can check out, but if you click on the Two Steps Ahead podcast logo, all of our past shows will pop up in video form. You can scroll through them, click on them, watch the videos. There's an orange banner that goes across the middle of that page. It'll take you to our SoundCloud account, which is our audio version. You can download, take them with you on the go, or just listen from our SoundCloud account. We're also on Rumble and YouTube with the video component, as well as the website. But you can also just listen anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can do an internet search of Two Steps Ahead Podcast, TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. All of our stuff pops up. So we're pretty easy to find. Again, listen anywhere you listen to podcasts, Rumble, YouTube, SoundCloud, and of course the website, radiowarp.com. We're on social media as well, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all at Two Steps Ahead Podcast. And the two again is TWO, Two Steps Ahead Podcast. If you want to reach out, we have an email, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. You can also DM me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that. So pretty easy to get a hold of. And again, I always put this out there at the end, and maybe I should put it out there more in the beginning or middle of the show too. But if you're going through something and you don't know where to turn, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go, reach out, send me an email. You might not know me, I might not know you, but at least I can be a voice on the other end. If I can't help you, I know people. I could direct you to people that could help you. You don't have to go it alone, especially during the holidays. Holidays coming up, it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you've lost a loved one. I know Christmas Eve, a few years back, I got a phone call. A friend of mine died on Christmas Eve from cancer. So Christmas Eve, sometimes it's that moment of reflection of a lost friend. So I understand. Don't have to be alone. Reach out. If I can't help you, I'll find somebody that will. But reach out, because you don't have to be alone. There is no, I have no choice, because I'm inviting you to send it my way. I'll be that choice. If there's other means that you can reach out, other people you can reach out to, and that's better for you, by all means do it, whatever you need. But I always like to put that out there. Two Steps Ahead Podcast@gmail.com. Also on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Reach out, and I'll do what I can to help you. Again, Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend. And until next time, God bless.